Welcome to Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
And happy Thirsty Thursday.
Thirsty Thursday.
And the new year is just around the corner. And we're all drinking our fluids over here, staying hydrated.
Yeah. I've been drinking water all day, so I'm entitled to
trying to keep hydrated because there's a lot of ailments going around.
Yeah.
And we wanted to give a couple shout outs to our sick friends. Seraphine Hurley, who has a show on before us on the Paranormal United Network. I hope you feel better, Seraphine. Courtney Peterson also has been sick.
She's not feeling well. She's under the weather as well.
Yeah. It's tough out there. You know, I'm almost afraid to go on social media anymore. You know, you go on. It's somebody's sick or dying, and it's just been really a tough end of the year. 2021 was not easy.
No.
You know,
Can't wait to kick that freaking thing out the door.
Yeah, and I've really just not even wanted to go on social media. So we're catching up with some of our messages. We did get your messages, guys, and I replied to some today. And we'll get back to you for Bigfoot and the Bunny and Dark Horse Paranormal, especially. And like I said, we've just been kind of peeking on social media a little bit, just not that curious, you know, like Curious George. You know? So why was George so curious anyways?
He's a monkey.
Why are monkeys curious?
I don't know.
Why is the boy's monkey so curious? I have no idea.
Why are cats curious? I mean,
I don't know.
We're curious. That's why we have guests on tonight.
Yes. Thank God we got guests tonight because we're still waking up from like a nap. So excuse us, but we got
I've been under the weather too.
Amazing guests. Yes, we thought we might have had the dreaded COVID this week.
Yeah.
But let me bring them right on.
Happy New Year, Robbie Crossan.
Yes.
Haunted Scotland. We are not alone.
We're not alone. Never alone. All right. Debra Lynne Katz has a PhD in psychology with an emphasis on human consciousness and society and holds a master's degree in social work. She's also the director of the International School of Clairvoyance, one of the first schools of its kind to offer successful distance training programs via teleseminar and webinar. She's an accomplished clairvoyant, remote viewer, medium, and energy healer who works for some of the leading business manufacturers, stockbrokers, and whose clientele includes some of the top celebrities in the nation. And we also have Michelle Freed, who is a graduate of the Alternate Practitioner Academy and received certification from the National Guild of Hypnotism. She completed the beginning, intermediate, and advanced training programs through the International School of Clairvoyance, where she learned to integrate her intuitive gifts and her hypnosis skills. She is a talented remote viewer and remote viewing instructor, as we know, and fully certified in all forms of controlled remote viewing, or CRV. She completed, I think I said that, didn't I? Advanced training programs through Right Hemisphere Intuitive Specialist, APP, and received additional training from Joe McMonagle, who some of you may know. And let me bring them right on because I really need to do this. All right, here we go.
Figure this out. There it is.
There we are. How are you?
Hello.
Wow. I'll tell you, it's tough getting up from a nap and doing this. I was like,
you got the groggies?
I got the groggies.
Don't worry, it won't wake you up.
Well, we're looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
Girls are in party mode.
Girls are in party mode. Now, you guys have known each other for a long time. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your histories together and what that was like?
Too long. We went to high school together. So I think I was about 15 when I met Michelle. She was about 16 or so. And yeah.
And Deborah signed a non-NDA. We can't really discuss some things.
I bet.
Except that I have to admit, I did spike my drink in celebration for New Year's, and so maybe that non-disclosure might slip away as night.
We'll be burning that thing before we're done for sure.
Oh my gosh.
So really cool. And having these kind of mutual interests is just kind of really interesting and kind of amazing. You also have a twin sister, Deborah, correct?
Yes.
Who's also into this kind of stuff. I remember from a remote viewing class with Michelle.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, it's great to be able to have friends and family that are also super into these topics.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was
Yeah,
like that.
whether they admit it or not. So sometimes they'll to your face, they're like, oh, you're crazy, what are you talking about? But it's just so crazy that all of a sudden they'll bring up something that happened to them and you're like, I thought you thought this was crazy, you know? So
Right.
it's pretty interesting. But I'm so glad for shows like yours, because it opens up a community of people so that they can find a very safe place to talk about these things. And really, when we talk about these things, it kind of pushes us to do better and be better. And Deborah and I are very curious, and we're always looking and thinking about ideas of how to do experiments or get people involved in the experience, because it's really near impossible to explain something to somebody unless they experience it.
It is. And some of these topics seem really, really heady sometimes. And, you try to wrap your head around it and you really don't get it until it happens to you. I totally agree. Remote viewing is a good example of that. Could you tell us a little bit about remote viewing, both of you guys? CRV versus ARV, just for our listeners who maybe don't know. Our show does have a paranormal theme, and we definitely delve into parapsychology and as well as all kinds of ufology. We cover a lot of things here. Cryptids,
All the allergies.
All the allergies. And we have allergies.
And we
Yeah, I can try to do that very quickly, like a 1-minute rundown. So remote viewing it was a term that was originally defined by Ingo Swan and some other researchers. And so it is using your psychic abilities, but within a structured protocol. And there's different methods as part of the protocol, but the overall protocol would be working in a manner where you're blind, you don't know, you don't have much of any information about a target. And then also he defined it as one where you would at some point get feedback as well. So it's a way to structure using your psychic abilities, but it's really a design that where you're conducting yourself in a careful manner and structured and making sure that you're using your psychic abilities and none of your logic or guessing or anything like that. And so, but even with that, it's still very broad. So there's different designs, and then there's different psychic approaches within the designs. So controlled remote viewing was also conceived of by Ingo Swan, and that's a lot more structured, step by step, where you're supposed to use your paper, and it's much more rigorous, and where you just pretty much follow the rules. But then there's different derivatives of that. So for example, Michelle, she has been trained in TDS, transdimensional systems, which is a derivative of controlled remote viewing. And then there's, apart from that, the opposite of controlled remote viewing might be considered extended remote viewing, which is much more freestyle. You go into a deeper state, you close your eyes, and there are kind of elements as if you're out of your body, even though people will argue you can't say for sure you're going out of your body, and it's not like you're having a full-blown out-of-body experience, but you extend yourself to the location and move around, and then afterwards you write down what you were getting. So that in a nutshell is remote viewing.
That's excellent. That's a good way to describe it. A lot of times it involves drawing, and I like that you touched on the ESP factor of not trying to rationalize the thoughts that transmit that you're getting, your psychic impressions. You have to do them, as I understand it, just immediately, don't filter, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and when the term remote viewing is used, it is used coming from the historical context of the research labs, Stanford Research Institute and the Princeton Research Institute, and then the U.S. government programs. So while there are some people that just use the term remote viewing synonymously with clairvoyance, those that are really into remote viewing who came out of this certain historical context and lineage, they get kind of upset if you're not careful about the usage of terms. So Michelle and I are way more laid back, and we don't yell at anybody if they are just saying, oh, I couldn't find my wallet, so I just tuned in for a second and then I got an image and found my wallet, and then so I remote viewed it. Like some people will use remote viewing in that way, and I have to admit I sometimes use it like that too. But there are some hardcore remote viewers who would say, well, that's being psychic, that's using your clairvoyance, but that's not what we would really consider remote viewing. So there's purists and people who really get into the, you got to stay within the narrow confines of the definitions, but others just are a lot more relaxed.
Michelle, yeah, you're very relaxed.
That's excellent. Michelle, did you want to talk about your classes a little bit and your style of remote viewing that you teach? And we'll circle back to it later because I know we got a lot to cover, but
yeah. So I think what's a little different, or what I spend a lot more time on in my classes, is really getting our butts out of the seats and using and engaging our body and our senses into the target. And I feel like it just gives a more, I guess you could say, robust session, because like Deborah and I are always talking about, in fact, today we were talking about, is it's a really good way to reach for details and push yourself to get more. Like I always say in my class, like when you think you're done, do one more, because I find like a lot of people in my classes, they stop too soon. And Chris, I say that all the time to you. Like if you would just go a little bit longer, you would be like, and the truth is, Kristen, she hasn't been able to come to a lot of classes, but she is really, really good. She has done some incredible work in our classes. So I miss you, and I wish you would come to our groups. I think you're a great asset.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I will. 2022 is coming.
Yeah, we have a lot of hope for 2022.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into some speed round predictions. And we're hoping to get our audience, you guys out in chat, involved in this as well. Possibly give us predictions, and we're going to try to do them ourselves. And it's going to be fun. We're going to try to do a little audience participation. So stand by for that. We touched on Ingo Swan, and he's a very interesting individual. I'm reading his book Penetration right now, and I know there's got to be some kind of bad joke in that, but I'm not even going to go there. But it's a really good book, and it's one of, I guess it's considered one of his out there type books, because he talks about moon mining and aliens, kind of secret government officials, and it's a fascinating read. His drawings that I've seen, his remote viewing sessions for the moon, which people really don't talk about the moon too much. Really interesting. In Jupiter, with discovering rings of ice around Jupiter before NASA knew they existed. So that's just a fascinating story, where we sent up a space probe, and before the probe got there, he actually was drawing, I think it was 13 different things about Jupiter that got proved by that space probe back in the 70s. Deborah, I believe you did sorry, I'm lost for words here. Did a lecture on Ingo Swan. I think that would be the right way to say it. I watched something on YouTube recently.
Yes. So I spent 2.5 years in his archives, not like every single day for 2.5 years, but once or twice a week. for that period of time because they're located at University of West Georgia, where I was going to graduate school not too long ago. So I had the opportunity to read through all his files that had to do with the planet. So yes, his remote viewing of Jupiter, that was really cool to get to see how that whole project came about. He and Harold Shermer knew that this telescope was going to be going out to the planet and bringing back images, but it was going to be months in the future. And they decided that they were going to see what information they could get about the planet that they didn't already know. So earlier we talked about that Ingo himself defined remote viewing as a process where you're blind to the target, but there are different definitions and different levels of blinding. So in this case, he was not blind to the task of let's tune into the Jupiter. And some people might take an issue with that. However, he said, let's go in, we can focus our attention because we know it's the planet, but we want to know what's going to come back in those images that people don't currently realize. And that's where they found that there were rings. That was the main thing. And that information went to scientists like Carl Sagan, who said, you guys are crazy. There are no rings. You're mistaken. And others who just really ridiculed them until the images came back. And lo and behold, so much of what he came up with was correct. And so in the archives, it was really cool because you could see how they analyzed the project. Russell Targan, Harold Pudoff, and some others, they collected all the different scientific magazines at the time that were reporting on what came back from the satellite images. And they then, so there was Newsweek, Times, like there were about 30 different magazines, and they went through them. And if any impression that either Harold or Ingo had was correct, they would indicate it. They color coded everything, and they separated it by, like, if they talked about gases, they would color that like in red, or if they talked about the landscape or what the earth, or not earth, but the land was made out of, that would be color coded with blue. So you see all these different colors throughout their transcripts, and then they were able to add up how many impressions were correct or not. And the impressions had to be reported in more than one magazine in order for them to get credit for it. So it was really a whole structured project that originally the researchers did not want them to do. So that was one of the things that was really interesting to me. There were so many projects that Ingo wanted to do because he as a viewer also was hired as a consultant at the Stanford Research Institute as they were trying to develop the military programs. And he would come up with an idea for something and they would say, no, that's not going to work. So even coordinate remote viewing, like how you guys, I'm sure Michelle in your class gives you the target numbers, and she doesn't have to give you anything other than target numbers. Well, Ingo originally had those as latitude, longitude coordinates if he wanted someone to describe a location. And the other researchers he was working with, really his supervisors, they said, no, that's not possible. There's no way that unless somebody knows what the target is, because they were thinking it needed to be telepathic communication going on, because that was how it typically was, that somebody did have some foreknowledge of a target, and then you tune, or someone, like they were having outbounder experiments where they would have a person go out to a location and then the remote viewer would have to tune into that location, but they thought they were doing it through the person. So when Ingo was like, no, you don't need to send a person out there, just do a latitude, longitude coordinate, they thought he was nuts and it wasn't going to work. And he basically said, if you don't let me run this experiment, I'm just going to quit. So he had to constantly be pushing the limits and threatening to quit and throwing temper tantrums, which it sounded like he was good at. But then they would say, okay, we'll do it. And then they got incredible results. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't even know that you can just have a target number and tune into it. Because once they decided they wanted to move away from latitude, longitude coordinates because people were getting too familiar with those, and instead move over to just random numbers that were just showed that they didn't have any meaning, and they found that that worked as well. So
Right. And that's how we work with Michelle, is off of random numbers when we do remote viewing sessions, which seems to work out pretty well. And it's amazing, like how, how well it works. And no one's 100% all the time. Even Ingo wasn't 100% all the time.
yeah, definitely.
But when you get it, it's amazing. You get the feedback.
It's a rush.
And you go, oh my God.
How is
you
that
have
possible?
Some aspect seemingly to pull from thin air.
Yeah, and you could see from these examples so far that it really is, it's not just about the viewing, but it is about the setup, which is, are we going to task this with numbers? What level of blinding are we going to use? Even today, when Michelle and I were talking earlier, I asked her if she would be a viewer on a project because I needed a really good experienced viewer. And she said, well, Michelle, tell them what you said to me when I said, will you do the target? You asked me.
Well, I wanted to know, so I wanted to, because she seemed like she needed it pretty quickly, and she wanted to, I'm assuming it's like a research paper or something, or I don't know what you're doing with it. But I wanted to kind of narrow it down. Is it, an event? Is it a location? Is it something? I didn't want any details, but I didn't want to spend all my time describing a location if it's an event. And that way I can spend more time, extrapolating details. And that's really what she seems to need, is details.
Yeah. And so there were two parts of that. One where, how can we want the viewer to be blind, but also we want to have them focused enough where they're not going to like spend hours and hours getting the information about something that we don't really need. And the other thing is, and this is something a lot of times newer students don't realize, especially because when you're first training, you're usually training like with simple objects or with photographs where you're going to get your feedback photo. And what you're even describing is the feedback photo. So for example, if the photo's an airplane and in your session you get an airplane or you get something flying through the air, a man-made object flying through the air, you're going to be so excited, like, wow, I was really psychic. I saw something that was, either an airplane or like an airplane flying through the air, and that was the target. And that's terrific. But what if we're doing an investigation and we really need to understand what was that thing in the sky? What was it? Then, because it could be any number of things. And even if it is an airplane, maybe we need to know what country it came from, what type of plane it is, who was in it, who is responsible for flying it, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so if you come back and say in your session, you might be like, wow, I'm getting this really clearly. I think I did a good job here. And it's not about doing just matching. It's about getting those details. And that's what I would say separates an experienced viewer from a newer viewer, because it just takes time to learn how do you go back in and get more and more details, even knowing that you need to do that. And then putting aside all the assumptions that keep getting generated as you're going through your session. So
that's excellent. And that's well put, and there are definitely distinguishing factors as you get more involved in this over time as to what they pick up on and that sort of thing. Cliff Jones says, research 12,000 years ago and you'll find the truth. Before the Great Flood, aliens contacted us and added to our DNA. Yes. You can remote view.
That would be a great session. We should do it.
I think I like to talk about the Anunnaki, but I kind of agree with them.
Yeah, it does seem like an Anunnaki thing, and that is something you can remote view. Time doesn't matter with it. Past, future, you can look at things like aliens and really esoteric topics and hit upon them. So I had a couple other comments. Thank you, Cliff, for your comment. Debra Lynne, I don't want to butcher your last name. Debra Lynne says, good evening from Toronto, Canada. Enjoy your New Year's Eve tomorrow. Be safe out there, and Happy New Year 2022. That's right.
That's right. We can't wait.
Woo.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are. We are
New
just done
us.
with, 2020 was just horrendous.
2021 started off last year with a fire.
Yeah,
Right
New Year's
across the
Eve,
street.
across
House
the
burnt right
street,
down.
the house burned down.
We were like,
really?
we had a great
Standing
year.
out front watching the house
And it was
burn.
like that.
I'm like, wow, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, great year.
So
I was actually, I remember like vividly, the day like today, right before, I was so excited. I was like, more things to come in 2021. I was just so like, whatever, it has to end. I was ready to go. I was excited. I just had all these positive, I was ready. And then it was just kind of like, nah, just declining as the year went by.
Yeah.
So
We
but
understand.
there's always hope. There's always hope.
There is. And we definitely want to get into those 2022 predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua Dixon says, isn't dreaming a form of remote viewing? Well, that's an interesting comment. What do you?
Well, we did. Doug, you should talk about our project that we did with dreaming and remote viewing. That was cool.
Yeah. So Michelle and I worked on a year-long dreaming project where every week on a Saturday night, we had to have a dream about the photograph that our project manager would show us the next day. So I wouldn't say it's a form of remote viewing, but again, if we're talking about the setup, there's different ways to set up dreaming projects. And the project that we set up followed the format of associative remote viewing, but it was where we were blind to the target. We had a target number. We knew that we had to describe the photo we'd see the next day, and then we'd get the feedback photo the very next day. So it was set up very much like remote viewing. So is it a form of remote viewing? I would say I could totally see why you might say that. And I would say it very much parallels a remote viewing protocol. Let's say it like that. There's a lot of similarities. And then you're just really switching out the sign method. So instead of being awake, you're doing your dreaming.
I'd like to add something to that too. It's we really surround everything in remote viewing and this kind of dreaming with an intention. And I think the intention part is what kind of connects them. Is like if you set an intention before you go to sleep with something you want to know, which is the same like when we set a target we set the intention. In theory, we don't even really need a number. In fact, we've worked on a ton of projects where they just say, just do your thing. They don't even give us a number. There's an intention set. We know what we're supposed to do, and we just kind of follow it. So
it's so interesting that the intention is really the joining factor in this and remote viewing, and also a lot of other things too. And other esoteric topics, right? You could get into like witchcraft or something like that. It's all about these sort of intentions.
Manifestations.
Yeah, manifestations.
You're manifesting it.
Yeah, it's intention and then attention. Where are you putting your attention? And I've been finding lately, even this week, I was trying to tune into COVID and how it looked like it was going to be going, and saw a couple of things. And then I was trying to look at, well, are there any solutions to this? And I fell asleep and I had a dream, and the dream gave me some information. And I thought it was so cool because I really attribute this to our year-long dreaming project, because you really get used to your subconscious starts to respond so quickly to what you're needing that it's just no effort at all. I think we both agreed, like, remote viewing can be a lot of work, and dreaming just gets to be so easy. As long as when you wake up, you force yourself to write and you force yourself to sketch what your dream image is. But yeah, it's way easier to dream, I would say. Just set that intention.
Set the intention before bed, and probably a good idea to keep a dream journal and start journaling your dreams regularly. That helps people remember them. I know that's worked for me in the past.
You know, it's taking it from up here and bringing it down onto paper. So whether it's a journal or you just get used to writing or emailing it, but you do have to ground it into the physical. And most people find who say they don't dream very often, if they just do it for a week and write something down, even just like when you wake up, even if you don't remember anything, just say, okay, well, how do I feel when I woke up? Or if I did have a dream, what would have been happening in it, or how would I have felt in the dream? So you just force yourself to get anything down. And I don't know anyone who's tried that, like for, let's say, several nights in a row and didn't start having dreams. Almost usually it took just a couple days.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting what you come up with when you start journaling them, and how many might be premonitions of something that might happen that day, or like Michelle said, you can set an intention and try to get an answer for something in your dreams.
And it's really fun.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that when you write them down immediately after you wake up, it's all fresh. So like later when you go back, you're like, oh, I didn't even remember that part, because when it's real fresh, you have everything on there. And as the day goes on, you start losing information. So that's another reason it's important.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you can kind of train yourself with that journal to just immediately write things down when you wake up, and it does start to work after a few days.
And it's really fun doing it as part of a group, because the group members start having shared dreams and incorporating each other into the dream. And we had that experience a couple times.
Remember the Cracker Jacks? Tell them the Cracker Jacks with Nancy. That's a funny story.
Yeah. And I had this dream, and in it there was an empty room and a big bookcase looking thing, or shelf unit. And the only thing on the entire shelf was one box of Cracker Jacks. And it had been years since I had even seen a box of Cracker Jacks, but there's like a sailor guy on the front of it. And so I wrote that down, and there was something else in the room too, like some water kind of leaking into the room. And then we got the feedback photo the next day, and it was a photo of people in the water and someone like rescuing someone from a boat, like a guy on a boat pulling someone out of the water. And I thought, well, maybe the sailor on the box is matching that. I wasn't like super impressed, but we didn't hear from our project manager, Nancy Smith, until later that day. And she wrote back that night, and she said, oh, I'm sorry for turning in the photo late, but I was out. She said a friend came over and grabbed her to be in a marathon, a spontaneous marathon, and they're running like, several miles up this mountain, and there's a refreshment stand, and the only thing they had in the refreshment stand was boxes of Cracker Jacks.
My goodness.
Oh wow.
It's just like, when she hadn't seen Cracker Jacks for years, and why would that be the food that they're serving to marathon runners? So
yeah, right.
No, that's very
I
bizarre.
guess maybe the high carbs,
Yeah. So that was an example of where we thought
there was another dream I had where I saw Deborah in the distance, and she was talking to someone that we knew. And what was really, it was like in a hotel. So I saw her like across the atrium sitting at a little table with this guy, and she was talking there. And so I told her about my dream, and she's like, oh, wait, I saw, like, it was like she saw me like down further in the other, like looking at her. So it was like we were seeing each other in the dream from the different perspectives. It was so weird.
Yeah, there was one where in the dream, Michelle was pointing out, there were like all these images I was looking at in the dream, and Michelle actually was pointing to one image and she was saying, that's the right image. So in the dream, she told me what image was correct. Like it was a full-blown lucid dream. And so I sketched that image, and then it was a really great match to the
I
target.
told you I got your back. I told you.
Yeah. But
And then,
do you,
what? Are you
do you-
going to say the same thing I'm going to say?
no, I don't know. You go first, and then I'll.
I was going to say, so we have this really weird, I'm sure you guys know people that you have these crazy relationships with. And so one time Deborah calls me on the phone and she's like, were you just talking to your daughter about lunch or something? And I'm
about
like,
carpool.
oh,
You guys
carpool.
arranging
Right.
the carpool.
And we were sitting in the car during carpool talking about lunch, like how she should pack her lunch for school. She was like in high school or something, and she wanted, to come up with some ideas of how to pack a salad or something like that. And she like heard the conversation. It was so weird.
So you left out the point. I was in California and they were in Chicago. And I literally, I woke up and I heard them so clearly. It was as if their voices were right next to my ear, like as if we were on the phone, but we were not on the phone. But it was really that clear, which I have to say, I get a lot of telepathic or clairaudient communication, but it's rarely that clear where I'm hearing whole sentences. I could tell that it was her and her daughter and what the subject matter was. So that was pretty cool.
Really cool.
And then we had another time when we were at the Green Valley Resort in Las Vegas for a HERVA conference. And we were in the food court, and I was at one end of the food court and she was at the other. And I heard her say something to me, and I turned around and I was shocked that she wasn't next to me because I heard her voice and I like felt her. I was 100% certain she was right there, but she wasn't. And then she told me that she was trying to do you remember what you were doing?
I was freaking out, and I kept saying to you, don't leave me here. Something like that. Like, don't leave me here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I needed my chicken nuggets.
That's an example. Now you guys obviously know each other, and you've known each other for a long time. So the idea of your energies kind of crossing and knowing what the other one is doing doesn't seem far-fetched to me at all. But how do you think it kind of works through these experiences? Like, what have you learned? Like, what is that you're tuning into? People throw that energy word around a lot. What do you think it is?
Yeah, well, I think it's a number of things. Like in the last example, Michelle really wanted to communicate to me, and she had emotion, don't leave me here in the hotel, because it's like you could get really lost in that hotel forever. But so she had a strong emotion, so the emotion helps fuel it, and we're so used to talking, we talk a lot. So as on the phone or whenever we get in person, we could just talk all night long. So we're really primed to hearing each other's voices and comfortable with each other. And then we also do psychic work together too. Like, I think that can also, make a difference. It's opening up that connection. So you can really look at these different elements of being comfortable with someone, knowing them when there is stronger emotion. Although it was really weird with that carpool example, I have no idea why that happened, because I don't think I had been thinking about her to begin with, but we were very
totally missing. When do you not think about me? What are you talking about? Hello.
I love that. Kristen and I have a lot of that too. We were kind of telepathically connected. We've done experiments like picking colors and numbers and things like that, and just, getting most of them all right. It's so strange how that'll work. It's just like we almost know what the other one's thinking. Sometimes it's music, or it could be anything. Like, I feel like we're in each other's head. We'll go, get out of
All
my
the
head.
time. Get out of my head.
That
Texting,
sort of thing.
even when we text.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And I think a lot of people experience that to some degree. They know, like, if they get a text, they know who it is before they look at
That's
it.
what Cliff just said. Cliff Jones.
Who calls. Yeah, thank you, Cliff.
Yeah, that's cool.
Who's calling in before you look at it, you kind of know. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
experience, ESP in some level, and maybe don't realize it or give it too much thought.
They ignore it.
Well, I had something funny that happened in a dream not too long ago. My husband, Danny, so he's not into this stuff, but I say he's like probably the most well-trained non-psychic person in the world, because he's,
Non-believer.
I did 20 hours of classes and he's always hearing me lecturing. So even though he says he himself, that he's a mechanic, and he just says that it would just, he doesn't really want to go into these areas, but he's open to it, especially now after we've been together for like 20 years. So one night I had a dream, and in the dream, I was in an apartment with some guy, and we were kind of making out, or he was trying to make out with me. And I was like, well, I shouldn't really, because I'm in a relationship, but okay, maybe I'll just, kiss him just to see what it's like. So this was a dream, I'm not responsible for my actions. But so,
I like the justification there.
Right. We'll get back to NDA in a moment, I think.
Yeah.
So I knew I shouldn't be in the dream, but I just kissed him a little bit. And suddenly there's a knock. Someone's banging at the door, and it's Danny. And he's like, let me in, let me in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we can't let him in. He's going to kill this guy. And so then I woke up, and right at that time, Danny woke up too. And he's like, oh my gosh, I just had a really weird dream. And I was like, what happened? And he said, I don't know. It was so weird. I was at this apartment. I was like at this door, banging on a door, and you were in there with a guy that was like attacking you, and I needed to come in and save you.
Attacking you.
So I didn't correct him. I just said, wow, I was dreaming too about being inside. So I was on the inside of the door in my dream, and he's on the outside of the door doing the exact same thing. But yeah, isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. That's really cool, though.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him I was a willing participant in
Just left that part out. Oops.
It's not like you're lying.
I was dreaming. It's so interesting to me too, this idea that when you're dreaming and you don't know you're dreaming, it's like your consciousness is moved. You could be in a different body, you could be anything, and you don't know it unless you're having like a lucid dream or you're an out-of-body experience. You have no idea. So for all purpose and intent, that is your reality.
Yeah.
You're in that dream state, which is just fascinating.
Yeah. I had a cool dream this week. Well, experience. I was having pain in my left kidney, and it was pretty bad for 2 days. And my insurance expired, and my new insurance doesn't start until the 1st. So I was pretty worried about it, and it was waking me up at night. And at some point I thought, well, why aren't I tuning into this? If I have psychic abilities, why aren't I, using them on myself and trying to heal myself? And I started to look, and I fell asleep. And as soon as I fell asleep, I had a lucid dream where I became aware I was dreaming, and I got excited, and I thought, well, I'm going to just try to lift up out of my body and fly around, because I usually do that when I become lucid. And I was having a little trouble lifting up, and I started to rise up, and then I realized there was someone above me, a presence, and I looked up, and there was this enormous bald guy. He looked like he was either Filipino or Indonesian or Tibetan, bald, dark skin. And I knew immediately he was a healing guide. And he just had his hands like going over my head. And I was just like, hi, I see you. Oh my gosh, I actually see you. And I was just so excited. And then I woke myself up. But as soon as I woke up, I felt fine. And I've had no pain since then.
Wow.
That's excellent.
That's
Wow.
interesting.
And I don't typically have this sense like that I see my healing guides, or, you know, I see a lot of other spirits, and I'm sure you guys have these experiences too. But yeah, it was just a great reminder that when we want help and ask, a lot of times we have to ask for the help. You know, it's not that we don't have it, but we don't even take the time to ask for it or to spend any time, you know, for putting our attention on ourselves.
That's great. That's a really interesting story. I had a dream where I fell asleep in the dream, and I had an astral projection from within the dream. So it was literally like Poe, it was a dream within a dream. And when I had the astral projection happen, the out of body experience, I was kind of flying down the street in a town. It was totally different than the rest of the dream. And the buildings in the town, like the corners, everything was sort of pixelated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am just so lost for words tonight. I don't know what it is. I can't think of any other words.
Had a lot of coffee too.
I've had a lot of coffee.
Very caffeinated.
And everything was pixelated. And then I came out of it. I snapped back into my body. I was still in the dream, and the dream continued for a while before I actually woke up into this reality. And I thought that was so strange. It made me think about things like simulation theory and, you know, could this really be real? Because like, why were things pixelated?
Yeah.
Going down to, you know,
and why were you dreaming in
level
your dream?
3 or whatever it was, right? It was kind of strange.
Bizarre.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And, you know, why do we sometimes dream in black and white, or sometimes dream in color? Like, do you guys, Michelle, do you find that you ever dream in black and white, or is it always color?
It's always color.
How about you guys?
Usually color, I think.
Mostly color for me. Yeah. Now they say that you can't read while you're dreaming or in your dreams. I don't know who said this, like somebody who took I don't know.
We were talking about that recently, and I'm not sure if that's true. I think
I can.
You mean letters and
like reading, you know, like a piece of paper or something.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's not true at all, because I definitely get words and sentences. And then if you guys have I'll just do a little plug for our book, written by John Knowles is my co-author, and we include many examples of people winning the lottery through different methods of using their psychic abilities. And so John has won a number of pick 3 lottos, and some of these he's done it by just having the words come clairvoyantly when he was awake, but some of it has been through his dreams. So yeah, we have documented evidence that you can, you know, get letters and numbers through your dreams. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because this is the subject of Michelle and I, our very next project, which, by the way, Michelle, we need to get together on this and over the next couple of weeks and get this going. But we're going to have several subjects. Maybe you guys might be great for this, because we're looking to have a whole range of, like, most people are brand new to actually, even if they've been remote viewing for a while, with the topic of tuning into letters and numbers. And so we had the idea a while ago that not only do we want to just like have them practice that, but we want to demonstrate how this has very practical applications. Because, you know, it's one thing if you're looking for a missing person or a suspect in a crime. It's one thing to describe like where they're living or the area. It'd be another thing to give their license plate number or their address, or at least the street that they're living on. And right now, that is one area that I would say most remote viewers and probably most psychics are not doing so well in. I think a lot of times because they're not even trying to go after that information. Occasionally names will come up for people. So spontaneously they'll come up, especially for mediums. That tends to be more common in mediumship. But we want to demonstrate that people can, if they go after these things intentionally that they can have some success. So we're going to have a range of newer people and more experienced viewers too. And then the targets will be license plates, street signs, anything along those lines. But we'll probably have to maybe narrow the parameters, because there was a study recently by a Chinese researcher, and he only studied one girl. So there's only one subject who she was a teenager, and they just published an article in the Journal of the JSC, the Journal of Scientific Exploration. It's a really interesting article, and but it shows that she had so many successes. They were 5 digits with either letters or numbers that she had to correctly get, and they were very, very strict in giving her credit. So if she didn't get like 4 out of the 5 letters correct in the right order, they didn't give her credit. And I don't have it in front of me to say what the stats were, but it was way impressive. I mean, she had many of these totally correct, like all 5 or all 4 in the right order. And if they had actually included, like where she had many times she had all the correct letters and numbers, but they just weren't in the right order. And then she didn't get credit for that. If she had, I mean, she probably would have then had like an 80% success rate. But, even out of like 50 trials to get 5, even if you got 5 out of 50, all the right letters and numbers in the right order, that is way off the charts of above chance. So I think there might be, when we set up our project, I think it might be helpful to, at least if the subjects knew like there's going to be 5 digits, or 7 digits, to keep it more consistently. But these, again, when we talk about, what's remote viewing, it's about how are we setting up a project? And there's so many considerations. And we definitely, like, we've known the stress of when we want to like have a project that goes really well. There's so much time involved, and you get so many other people involved. And then the idea like, oh, maybe I'm not structuring this in the best way, or there's like a choice here. Maybe I should have told the viewers this, but not this. And you run through a project that takes like 5 years. And then it's like, oh, I wish I could have done that a little bit differently. We want to avoid all of that. So there's a lot that goes into it, but yeah.
And to circle back to your book, ARV, Associative Remote Viewing, you work a lot in stockbroker. You both do in financial areas of stock predictions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Foreign exchange and these different things. And the book that does have a certain focus on that, as well as like lottery and ways that people can benefit right immediately from remote viewing.
Yes. So this would be considered applied remote viewing. So it's not just for practice or to know that you're psychic, but can you use these abilities and these methods so that you can make predictions about future outcomes that may then be able to earn you money. And there are lots of examples over the years where people have, in fact, made money. They've also lost money. So, I would love to say like, yeah, you can make so much money from this, and, just do it. I'd say there's a lot of benefits to doing it, but there's, you can win money, you can lose money. There's a lot involved with it. And again, some of it has to do with the way that you're setting up projects. Some of it has to do with how many trials you're going to do and who's involved. And then there is a really big problem that we cover 2 chapters in our book on the topic of displacement. So when we gave the example earlier with the dream about the Cracker Jacks, the target wasn't Cracker Jacks. The target was a photograph of people being rescued in the water. But the displacement, my attention somehow went to what my project manager was experiencing, and that ended up in my session. Now that didn't have to be a problem, But a lot of the projects, especially with associative remote viewing, it's a very kind of complex system. And there's different ways to do this, but associative remote viewing is basically where instead of directly looking at an outcome of an event, like for example, if you want to know the winner of a football game, like which team is going to win, if you directly psychically look to see who's going to win, like maybe you get an image of like a big guy running across the finish line and he's wearing a helmet and he's carrying a ball, and let's say he's African American and a big guy, like does that tell you, is that enough? Like if somebody didn't even know what the task was and they got all that, you might be really impressed, like, oh, they just described a football player, right? If the target could have been anything like a boat in the water or airplane in the sky, that would be impressive. But still, that's not going to tell you which team is winning, right? So to circumvent it where the options of any event are too close, there's what's called associative remote viewing, and it's called associative because you're taking a photograph, or it could be something else, but you associate different photos with different outcomes. So you can have one football team associated with an airplane, one photo associated, say, with a dolphin, and then the viewers are told, well, look at the future when we show you our feedback photo. When we show it to you, we're going to show you only the photo that's attached to the winning outcome. And so then if a viewer describes a dolphin, the project manager will be like, wow, you know, we're really confident that they're going to later receive the photo of the dolphin, which means it's this team. And now we can go make a wager on the team in advance of all of this. So if everything is working out well, there's like a feedback loop between the present moment and the future. And so that's associative remote viewing. But what starts to happen that makes this less reliable is this idea of displacement. So what if the viewer prefers airplanes to dolphins, even though they're only supposed to be tuning into the photo attached to the winning outcome? Sometimes they'll tune into all the photos or the other photo that they would naturally like better, or they might tune, like what if the project manager went swimming that day and they have a really close connection, so they start to get images of swimming, but it wasn't the dolphin photo that was winning, it was the other one. So there's just all this interference that can enter into this. And you know, if anything, it's very ironic because a lot of times people think like, oh, it's so amazing if someone was psychic, and then because it's something amazing, you think it's something that's really hard. But what Michelle and I have both discovered, and I'm sure you guys too will start to, the more you get into remote viewing, is it actually is so easy to tune into things. It's too easy. So you can be tuning into way more than you really want to be tuning into. And, you know, going back to intention and attention, you know, are you focusing on what you're supposed to be focusing on? Are you going to something to get the information, or are other things emitting signals? So, you know, this gets into even like with reading people, like if I was doing a reading for Chris and meanwhile Michelle was wanting to tell me something, you know, I might be doing a good job to be connecting with Chris, but if Michelle, if she's like strong-willed and energetic and emotional, and she's like, hey, Deborah, stop talking, you're, you know, whatever, then I might hear that. And then my attention would go over to her and I might start describing her. So it's like these different signals can be coming in, grabbing our attention. And a lot of times when we're wrong, we're wrong. It's not that we weren't being psychic. We were just starting to tune into something else and describing the wrong thing. You know?
Yeah, it really is like frequencies, and people use that word a lot, as well as energy. And it kind of is, right? So the frequencies can get crossed and you can be picking up information from two people. Or the displacement that you mentioned, I know, and I want to give a shout out to our friend Gail Heisen.
Yes.
Out there. I don't know if she's listening right now, but she usually checks out our shows. And her show is Small, Medium, at Large. And she sent us a Christmas gift. And this is
Aw.
a light,
It's a nightlight.
and
That's
it's
so
awesome.
cute.
It's-
The local hardware store has like the best Bigfoot memorabilia. It's made of metal. It's really nice. It
Yeah.
appears to be like handmade.
And she sent us
And some Concord grape jelly.
that she grew.
She grew the
herself and
grapes,
made.
and we wanted to say thank you. And,
Yes, thank you, Gail.
and do check out her podcast, Small Medium
A
at Large.
small, medium, at large.
Yes.
Yeah,
And-
We love her
But,
banana bread.
Oh,
is that right?
yeah.
That was bringing me to a point with the displacement, because there's an experiment in a book she's featured in by Dean Radin, who I know you guys are familiar with, but is a pretty famous parapsychologist. If you're not familiar with him, in his book Supernormal, he does a double slit experiment example where people focus their intent. If you're familiar with that double slit experiment, on like say one corner of the back wall, you know, where they're sending the electrons or photons, whatever they're using in that particular experiment, to see if they could move them. And mostly they did, but occasionally they would go the opposite direction. And it kind of sounded like that displacement of doing the flip, you know, and the remote view, or going to the wrong target.
AOLing as well. I get a thing with that.
Analytical overlays.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's so much between our own internal noise and just misinterpretations of things. And a lot of times our misinterpretations they're not all wrong. So yeah, with analytic overlay, which is basically your mind is trying to find some way to communicate to you what the target is. And so you're getting reminded of things constantly that you would equate with it. But then it's hard to sort out like what part of this is about the target and what part of this is just not at all connected with it.
Like logic
Right.
setting,
I think
right? So your brain is trying to put it together and make sense of it, which is very similar to things like pareidolia and paranormal circles. We talk about pareidolia a lot. That's where you're like looking at clouds and you start seeing faces, because your brain's kind of wired to put things together and make a face,
Well,
you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we want things to make sense, and you know, that's our, you know, just part of being human is finding patterns and making sense out of everything. But that's not always what the case is when we are, you know, remote viewing or using any kind of psychic. You're kind of tapping into your unconscious or subconscious part of your mind, which doesn't really need the logic part, the left brain, because that's more accurate. It's, you know, it's functioning from this place of how things feel, or metaphors, or it's relating to the senses in our bodies, and anything that would be drawing a conclusion or making an assumption is not really needed in this area. And so, you know, if you're kind of spending too much time thinking about something, that will lead you to start drawing a conclusion and making assumptions. So we like things to move fast. Whatever pops up in your head or anything like that is more times than not are correct.
Right. It can be in the form of things like symbols and symbology, and it just kind of got to put it out there and make sense of it later. You know, don't try to figure it out, because if you try to figure it out, it's going to take you right off the path.
Exactly.
Cliff Jones says, sorry, have to go. It's late in the UK, 3:04 a.m. Card was Ace of Spades. I am so sorry, Cliff. He was saying, pick a card. He wanted to play with us.
Oh,
And,
I didn't know if he meant us or
next
people.
time, Cliff, next time.
But thank you for tuning in.
But the next card you pick is a heart, something of 4 of hearts.
I think he's still there too. So
that's my prediction. Next card is 4 of hearts.
I was going to say hearts too, but then I started to question myself, and I was thinking, well, is that heart because we like hearts, or because it really is a heart?
Oh, don't analyze it.
That's the problem with forced choice, when you know the options ahead of time, right? Because then your mind can kind of play things like that more so than if it could be any option in the whole world, but that's why it can be pretty challenging with those kind. But like you were saying, you know, I think that when you start a session, I always have a talk with myself, and I tell myself my job in this session is not to understand what's going on. Like if you approach a session from either at the start or any point, like I want to understand what's going on here, then you've lost it. Like you're going to get derailed. So really the people that can do the best are the ones that can let go of that and just let all the information stand independently, but still know, like, so when some information comes up, you're going to go and probe it. You're going to go get more information, but you're going after more, not to make sense of it, but just because you can see more details are needed. And some people have an easier time with this than others. Some just really cannot get over the idea that they have to make sense of it.
Right. And it is really like a big part of the challenge. So when we say AOL or analytical overlays, that's what we're referring to. So our audience knows, and not you've got mail. Right?
Yeah, right.
Because that's what I think of every time you say
When
AOL.
I was at the Monroe Institute and Joe McMonigal was teaching some remote viewing, he addressed this, and he said in order to be a world-class remote viewer, you have to give up everything that it is to be human. And that's what he meant. He meant that you have to be okay with things not making sense. You know, because us being humans, we want things to make sense. We want to find those patterns, and everything should have a nice, cute little bow on it. And,
That's right.
you know, and it's messy. It's not like that. So, and when he said that, I had that, okay. Not that I am really good at it, but I understand it. I understand that's where my goal is.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And
Absolutely.
it's the same with, like we mentioned, reading people. And I think also mediumship and spirit communication too is often in the form of symbols, and you just kind of you take an impression of it rather than try to put it all together at the same time.
Right. And symbols can be subjective. So if you see a symbol and it means something to you, and then you prejudge that with the person you're reading, then you could have a missed opportunity, because that symbol that comes up for you might mean something completely different to the person you're reading. And that could have been very helpful for them. So, you know, you have to be careful that you just kind of report, you get what you get, you know, and just, you know, be like a private investigator where you're just reporting the facts, Jack. That's it. That's your job.
Here it is.
Yeah.
If you try to put it together, you could just take that person right off track. Amanda Jane Norton says, always go with your gut. And we would have to agree. Go with your gut.
Absolutely.
Joshua Dixon. Hey, Joshua, a lot of people can't deal with it, even though they have the power to do it.
Yeah.
Well, it does. You know, I look at it like you have personality factors that are involved in this as well, whether you call it personality or the way that your mind works. So I do really think that anybody can access psychic information, but yes, can you stay focused long enough? Can you deal with the emotions that come up? Can you deal with, you know, and the emotions range from the uncertainty, you know, I don't know what I'm dealing with here. I'm, you know, all the self-talk and self-judgment and questioning. And, you know, are you the sort of personality where if something is uncomfortable or strange or scary, you're just going to shut down? Or are you the personality type where if you encounter something scary, you're just going to say, screw this, I'm going to go back in and, you know, focus even more. And there's a lot of targets. You know, it's really interesting when there is a target that has something to do with someone not wanting you to know the information, like whether it's military, it could be so many a crime case where the the last thing that the murderer or rapist wants you to know is who they are and, you know, how to find them. So you have to like get past the resistances if you're going to keep going after the information. And that's where, you know, there's all these paradoxes and dichotomies. So like Michelle was saying, a lot of times you could just, you know, easily go in, get information. You don't need to, you know, spend a lot of time just grabbing the information. However, depending on what the target is, you might go to get it and hit a wall of resistance. So then you have to push yourself and go back in and get it again, or approach it from a different angle. So it's not that you'll get everything in 2 seconds, but, you know, if you want to describe an object at a location and you get a sense of a color but nothing else, well, you know, take a break and then go back in and come at it from, send yourself 500 feet above and look down, and then, you know, go touch it. And if you don't get information that way, then go behind it and touch it again, or go look close up, or, you know, you might have to try a number of things and keep going after it over and over again. And so it's about like perseverance. It is about confidence, because even the most confident person can be like, you know, Chris, you were describing it, like there's so many things you can just feel like, oh, I'm not getting this right. And why am I even doing this? I'm not good. You could like have that happen even if you're a really confident person. But if you're someone who's across the board unconfident, you know, and you're afraid to speak up and you're afraid to be bored, like if you're a total perfectionist and you only want to report what you're totally positive about, these are personality characteristics that are just totally going to get in your way. So sometimes it really is about working on yourself first, or at least introduction.
Yeah, I want to add to that, you know, through the process of learning this protocol and all these years, I've learned valuable personal lessons that I apply to my everyday life. Like just the idea of this, what we call an AOL, which is drawing a conclusion or making an assumption about something. Well, once I kind of grasped that idea, and I thought about in my life how many times I do that with people, you know, like if I start to get like, you know, somebody will say something to me and I will hear it and assume what they meant and then get, you know, hurt feelings or something like that. Now I just kind of put the brakes on and I just say, oh, I'm drawing a conclusion. So I have a choice now. Do I want to check it out and ask the person like what they meant by that? Or do I want to stick with my assumption that they were, you know, being, you know, rude or trying to hurt my feelings? And I think it did so much for me, because I just pause before I start, you know, getting, you know, riled up or whatever. And this is really good in life too, in general. Like, don't take things personally. And that's the problem, is like, you know, we tend generally to take everything personally, and that's why there's like a lot of fighting and things like that in the world, and causing all this, like, you know, it's helpful. Yeah, it's the energy in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I took this lesson from the remote viewing, and now I feel so much like just better. I feel more confident, and I just put the brakes on. Yeah,
Excellent.
Joshua.
Yeah. Joe Newman Marzoff says, so apples to reading tarot cards the same way, just read what you see and it doesn't have to make sense to you. I say this is going back to the gut feeling. We've actually had this conversation with tarot readers on our show before. There are different styles, right? So there's some of the tarot readers who really understand the background behind each card and the symbiology that runs through all that. And I keep using that word, symbiology. Yeah, it's my word of the day, symbiology. And other people just kind of use any divination tool and just read the person, right? And these things are just kind of tools, or they might be for, I think our friend Anne Marie Young had said, you know, the cards are really for the other people so they can understand what you're telling them.
Right.
And what is your take on that?
Well, I think that like Michelle said, it's if you get an impression, describe the details of that. So if you see an image of a girl holding a basket with flowers, holding it up to the person, and she's got blue eyes, then describe all those details, describe the picture, even if you don't know who she is, what this means to the person. Now you can still probe it and, have your intuition, hopefully more will come, about that. But at the very least, you want to describe it in detail. It's in remote viewing, if you're describing something physical, such as a building, let's say you're seeing a triangle structure, it's three-dimensional, it's shiny, it's bright. It's very common for a new viewer to jump to, oh, I'm looking at a pyramid or the pyramids of Giza. That would be the analytic overlay. Now it might be that, but it may not be that whatsoever. But what did you get? You got that it was triangular, it was three-dimensional, maybe there was an inside and an outside, it was shiny, it was gold. So all those individual descriptors, you don't want to jump to the conclusion. You want to go back to like what the details were that you saw. So as far as tarot, I guess it's a little hard to talk about that because some people are using their cards, they're pulling the card and they're reading out of a book what the meaning is, or they've memorized it. But a lot of people are just using that as a springboard, and then information flows through the card, and they start talking about the person and their life. So what I found to be a good approach with the tarot cards is to kind of look at a card and just relax and wait to see like what element stands out. And then the elements will start to like form together to tell a story that's not actually on the card. So you can incorporate it into your other abilities. And then what's really fun is I have a lot of clairvoyant students where I teach them how to read people, and they're already tarot card readers. So what I'll do with them is get them off their cards and instead have the cards appearing clairvoyantly. So they're not actually using the physical cards, but they're doing tarot card readings where the images of the cards come up, and then they could, totally describe the image that comes up. And then that's easier because to know what of the card to describe, because only what's relevant, is going to really be there.
That's good. That's a great answer. And I'd like to get into maybe our speed round stuff. How are you guys doing with time? I don't know if we set a time limit with you, if you thought we were ending right at 10. We usually go on to 11, but
we are used to sleepovers.
I feel it feels like a slumber party, doesn't it?
It does.
So
I love
we're for at least another 10 hours if you guys are
10
Sure.
hours.
10 hours.
I need a nap in between, but yeah, I'll get there.
That's so funny.
Well,
So
I know
I
we
was
use
thinking-
that word probe
What?
a lot. I said,
Oh,
I know
yeah.
we use that word probe a lot when we're talking about remote viewing, which, we were talking about space probes, and we're also talking about probing the target,
Yeah.
which it sounds a little odd, right? I mean, we've got
Oh
Ingo
yeah,
just
we're not to be confused with anal probes. Yeah.
don't confuse these things.
Yeah, we're not into anal
You
probes.
may or may not have them. So
No.
yeah, I went there.
I like Deborah's example where she talked about, like, say what shows up is this girl with that, hat, and you're just describing this girl. But the problem, I guess, one of the problems could be is if the person that's reading starts, I guess, naming this child, like saying, this is your grandmother from before. It's like, unless you specifically say in your mind's eye or whatever, you ask this image, like, who are you? And then it tells you. But to make an assumption or draw a conclusion, well, this little child is you when you're a child, or this little child is your grandmother and she's giving you a message or whatever. I think we have to be careful that we don't kind of project, something that comes from us onto what we think is going on here, and really letting the person you're reading really kind of, they're the ones that are supposed to analyze it and figure out like what we're doing. We are, I guess, channeling in a way. We're getting the information, we're communicating to people, and really, it's up to them to kind of figure out what that is. And we can guide them, but I think to draw a conclusion or make an assumption that this is your grandmother or this is your whatever, I think that could get into trouble sometimes. Maybe.
Well, we want to, yeah, I totally agree. And, sometimes we will get a very strong knowing sense with it. Like this is your grandmother, or this is a daughter. Like, this seems like a middle child daughter. And if it came in on that, but if it didn't come in, and we don't know, and we're like, if you hear yourself say like, well, maybe this is your daughter, or maybe this was you, or maybe this was your grandma,
Right.
any maybe, or I think, or it could be, no, that's a sign your logic is there. And instead of doing that, that's where the probing comes in, because that's where you want to like either ask the image, you could talk to the image, or you can merge with the image, or just focus and say, show me more. And then you might get something more, like maybe she then will do something to give it more indication. But I think too, the thing is the person you're doing the reading for, they may know exactly who you're talking about. Like they may be like, oh my gosh, like she's sitting next to me. My daughter is here sitting next to me, holding a basket exactly as you described. But you're not gonna, how would you know that if you don't know the person? Right. So that's
Right.
the point of like you like saying, oh, well, I don't understand this, so I'm not going to talk about it. No, there's so many things about a person's life and what they're all about in doing that you wouldn't know. And if they didn't tell you, you'll never know that you were right. So that's where you have to just trust that you're going to describe what you get. You're not going to go into just making stuff up if you don't know, but then you're going to go after more information. And, that's again, what I think separates out kind of newer readers from more experienced is they can get past all that mental noise and go back in and stay focused to get more, and then share it. And then, maybe get distracted, get a little discombobulated, then refocused and go get more. It's getting more and more details that, then makes it a really valuable or detailed reading.
Excellent. That's excellent. And I just wanted to throw out there, Michelle, you offer classes and remote viewing, and people should go to butterflyeffectscenter.com, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I have my remote viewing class starting January 22nd. And Deborah's got a whole bunch of courses that she taught me. So her psychic development classes, and then she also has her own remote viewing too.
Oh,
and
okay.
What is yours is Debra Katz what is it?
Yeah,
Deborah,
just DeborahKatz.com.
Debra Katz.
Deborah Katz. Or letter U, letter R, psychic.com. And I've got classes starting in January and February. So yeah, I do a remote viewing class for 12 weeks. And I also have a clairvoyant reading and healing class, a mediumship class, and then another class that's about manifesting. But you have to take the clairvoyant class first for the other classes. You could just go directly into the remote viewing class if that's something that you're interested in. But yeah, and Michelle and I, we teach some similar things, some different things. We've got different personalities and stuff. You might have more fun in her class. I'm a little bit more of a taskmaster.
You are not. No, she's good.
Well,
she's got such good insights. So, and you can never take the same class twice with with Deborah. And you're always learning stuff. And she's got 3 books that are amazing too. I'm just kind of,
I wanted to
I'm
mention a
helping
few
you.
of those actually, because we own a couple. Extraordinary Psychic. I bought You Are Psychic, The Art of Clairvoyant Reading and Healing for my daughter. And your latest book is Associative Remote Viewing, the one that you held up before.
Yeah, the big heavy one. That she
That's a
weight
big
trains
book.
with that one.
That's 700 pages.
Excellent. Well, that's perfect for New Year's, right? So get 2, and you just one.
You can also use it as a weapon. It makes a really good weapon if you need
Right.
or you can use it to lift weights.
Conceals itself, right?
If you're short, you can stand on it to
multiple.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, multifunctional.
And I see Irene Takura out there. Happy New Year's from Japan. Hey, Irene.
Wow.
She mentions only details can help that no one knows will help describe the spirit. I see them in my head and they reveal their identity to me.
I love that.
Oh,
So,
nice.
That's
cool.
very cool.
That's fantastic. That's
And
so
I wonder,
good.
is it actually New Year's in Japan? It's probably New Year's Eve, right? I think you're probably
She said that,
ahead of us.
They're
Yeah.
are they 22 hours ahead maybe? I'm not sure.
They might be.
Some-
I think Australia is
12.
closer to that.
16. I think
16.
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, happy New Year.
Yeah.
Should we have a
Yeah.
toast to our friends
Yeah,
in Japan?
That deserves a
Yes,
toast,
we
right?
should. Because
Happy New
it's
Year.
Happy New Year somewhere. Cheers.
Happy New Year.
It's New Year's somewhere. I
So
like
should
that.
we do the predictions like speed
Yeah.
round?
We
So-
can get into predictions.
little bit of that.
I had this idea in the shower and I had to call Chris and ask if it's okay if we do it. And what prompted it was I like the idea of doing it really fast because nobody has a lot of time to think about an answer or draw a conclusion or whatever. So I figure I'm going to shout out a topic and it's a general topic. And then whatever pops up in your head, just kind of go with it. And you know what? Goof with confidence, whatever. I think it'll just be fun. And
You got to
I
remember,
would
we're
love-
tired.
right?
You got to remember, we're tired. So you could just imagine what's going to pop up in our heads first. So.
I know that's what's going to be fun. And I think it would be so cool if your listeners would join in and type, and then Chris, you can read it to us and see. I think that would be so cool too.
Do we want to maybe put like a timer to it, that kind of thing?
No, we'll just if anybody rambles like Deborah. No,
Kind of-
I'm kidding. Totally joking. Totally.
I was gonna
You guys
suggest
are funny. So the audience would just type it in at the same time. That are we? How do you want to do that?
this? Yeah.
we can also sketch something too. Can people post like a picture of something that they might, if they get an image, they could sketch it?
They are
Not
welcome
sure.
to if they can. They might have to
Take a
photograph
picture
it with their phone and
and then
Yeah.
share it. to
and then
the-
share it to Facebook. We're on several different Facebook channels and YouTube as well, wherever you're watching us.
or listening.
But yeah,
Or
because a lot of times your image will match the answer, but not like the thoughts in your head. So sketching can be helpful. But we're going to actually be tuning into what are we going to tune into?
Okay,
Um,
so I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I'm
sure,
thinking.
that just went out.
Oh,
Oh my
your
God.
camera went out. Is that
It
your
did.
your
Give me one
ghost in your house?
You know, it
Probably.
may be.
Most likely.
We have had some weird activity up here, so give me one moment to troubleshoot that. Joshua says this is a great place to feel safe without judgment. Love this show.
Mhm.
Thank you, Joshua.
Oh, we love you, Joshua.
Okay, so how are we going to break this down again?
So I'm thinking like we would start with an intention. The intention is just to I'm going to shout out a topic and then just set the intention that whatever is probably the most important or largest or strongest vibration or whatever of information, and then just describe it. You know, so for example, the first one I'm going to come up with is I'm going to bring up politics. I'm just going to say the word politics, and whatever comes up for you that has something to do with politics. And, you know, just something we can start with the timeline where we can do beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. So let's start with the first one for everyone is politics, the beginning of the year. So
just we want like a vision or something of what's going to happen related to politics that's actually going to happen.
Exactly.
So we're asking
Something that,
like the information out there to come to us right now. Like we're calling
yes,
for that
right.
information.
Okay. So take a deep breath. Okay. And then let's see. Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. My first thought was Band-Aid, but I feel like it's a little bit jaded because I know obviously we're in a pandemic. I'm doing an AOL. I got to stop.
Okay.
Politics beginning of the year, correct? That's what we're doing?
Yeah. We're going to break it down beginning, middle, and end. Just to make it easy. So I'll say for me, so for me, I just got an image of President Biden, and I just kind of saw him maybe falling. So like he lost his footing and he fell down. That's what I saw for the beginning.
Dear. Who wants to go?
I'll
ahead?
go with that Band-Aid image also in reference to Biden
there you go.
and helping people out with COVID. I see some COVID aid coming in as we all know the infrastructure bill passed, but I see it more in the sense of COVID. Emery Young says COVID out there. Joshua says anger. Liz, thank you for joining us, Liz Milne.
What about you, Deb?
Yeah, you know, I was seeing a woman that looked really super angry, and she was holding money, and then I also had an image, like I heard the words "go home," like people were being told like to go into their houses and close their doors and windows. So assuming that has to do with COVID.
I saw something like a truck, like with large wheels, maybe military style, going over a wall real quick there when I just kind of stopped trying to think and just let it happen. Kristen?
I didn't get anything that popped to my brain, of course, because I'm really tired. But I did get a sense of anxiousness and anger.
Okay.
Anger still there. And Irene mentions Takura war in Southeast Asia is happening now. And Joshua says, I'm not angry at Biden, just to be clear. No, we aren't either.
No.
Joshua.
No, we're not angry yet. What about if we shift to the middle of the year? Does anyone notice a shift? Something different pop up for you?
Like say around like June or July?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and one approach could be just to imagine a timeline, and like I'm drawing a timeline and I'm putting like June, July, and I'm just putting my finger on it and asking for information to flow up about June and July when I touch it. So sometimes just these like touching
Would that
techniques.
be probing?
Right. There's that word again. You know, just so our audience understands when we say
We're going to just try to say it as many times as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
The question is, what are you using to probe with?
You can use all your senses to try to figure out what the remote viewing targets are, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to probe with my glitter green pen. Of course, I have assorted sparkly glitter pens. You can never have too many. Oh, look at you.
Yeah, but they're not glittery. They're
okay.
I'll work on it.
Okay, so what are you getting for middle?
Okay.
Everybody hear that?
I got to
Hi, Gail
yeah.
Tyson.
There's Gail. So I wanted to say that I had a little bit of insight that we're going to do this because we had talked about it earlier today. And before the show, I was thinking about it, and I got something, and it just came back to me. And it had something to do with South America. I thought this was kind of interesting. Somewhere in this central, like Brazil, to maybe like Peru, in there, I see something happening, something big, some kind of big event happening in South America. I don't know if it's volcanic in nature, but it seems like a natural disaster thing. It just kind of popped up, and I think that may be happening around the middle of the year.
Okay. Yeah, I had okay, we'll go to that soon. What about Deb? Deb, did you get anything for middle politics, middle of the year?
You know, I'm just going with an initial impression. I just started to get this like rip. It was like this like a zigzag rip of two things going in total opposite directions, and a sense that of like a feeling of just complete like standstill, like as if a system, you know, the system was already kind of like going like a wheel going back and forth. And I think this is like about like politics and different sides, like it goes this way, then it goes this way, but then there was like this total rift, and it was almost like just a break, like nothing functioning, like the wheel just stops.
Oh,
Like
geez.
there is just nothing is functioning. Like maybe, yeah, something of almost like a total breakdown in leadership, or just the complete
Meltdown, maybe of the country.
yeah, I'm hearing mayhem as well. Like I just see people scattering in every which way, and just it's kind of like, yeah, just all these things standing still, all these systems standing still, and not. And I'm also getting like images of band-aids, like Chris had an image of a band-aid before. But I'm seeing all these band-aids that were all over, and now the band-aids are starting to peel off, but there's nothing like replacing them. So all these like millions of band-aids are coming off, but there's nothing to hold the things together anymore. Not a very good picture.
No.
How about you, Kristen?
I didn't see anything. The first thing I thought that came to my mind was what I felt was despair. And I see Joshua Dixon also felt the same thing. I felt that as well.
Despair.
Okay.
So there we go. There's some
Yeah.
commonalities there. In our audience, we had a few different answers. Joshua had despair. And also, he had, I think at the same time we began talking about the middle, he said, I see a wave going back out to the ocean. Sadly, our friend Anne-Marie Young said, ships on a horizon. Gail had said, hey, great to see you ladies together. So we were just talking about you, Gail. So you knew, you heard us. See? Keisha Moore says, I'm getting extreme heat. Hot, felt sun on my face, dead crops.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Anne-Marie goes on to say chaos.
Yep. Do it.
And Joshua says, sadly, that's what I saw the world, in reference, I believe, to the chaos.
Okay, and then we're still in politics, and let's just shift to the last part of the year. What comes up for you for that? And then we'll go to another subject.
And I would say, like, let's really focus on the topic, you know, so even though it might be easier to just kind of grab these other things, but let's say it stay, so then we have a better idea of what we're talking about.
Right? That's where, yeah, so it's right now it's politics. Now we're shifting to the end of the year, and what comes for you for the end?
Like November, December of 2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm getting this feeling of a gentle rocking, like my body feels like it wants to kind of rock back and forth. And I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. But it somewhat of it feels soothing, but it also feels like ugh. I can't. You got a word for that? I don't know. Ugh. Ugh.
Word.
Look, I guess I can't play that in Scrabble.
It might be a word. I play Word Bump. I love Pogo. And UGH is an actual word. There you go.
It is? Okay.
Is it really?
Okay. I like it.
So I did see something this time. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I'm done. Yeah, go on, Kristen.
I got snow, very cold, and it's very dark, and everything is just still. And the feeling of despair went away, but it's more like a dead calm, like not calm, but it's just, I don't know the word.
Almost like quiet cold, right? I kind of got something very similar to that.
It's not
like
quiet.
like,
It's still.
like a really cold
It's
winter
very
and
still.
and like we had all this chaos in the middle of the year.
It's not remorse that I feel. I feel something totally different, but trying to look for the word. I'm sorry guys.
I know that.
Really
I had this kind of like I don't know, like a snowy empty forest desolation, kind of just cold. Yeah, exactly. I had something
and
similar.
I had the little fence somewhere in the back. Yeah, I just got that.
I also saw an image of Joe Biden's face like in a red light, and I don't know what that meant.
Oh God.
Like it was a red light were on him, but yeah,
well,
cold despair.
Well, it's a good thing he got up from his fall in the first part.
That's right. A lot of band-aids on it, and there you go.
We'll come back to the audience in a minute. What did you have, Deborah?
Yeah, so I had an image of like Congress, or I don't know if it was the Senate or the House, but it was like a classroom where there were a lot of missing people in the classroom, and then the ones that were there were throwing paper airplanes and just like playing games and kind of pulling each other's hair. Like it was just like a classroom where nobody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. But there's something about that there were many empty seats, like only a few people were in the whole room.
Interesting.
Politics.
Okay, so politics. All right, let's move on.
All right, before we go on to another topic, I'm sorry, Michelle, I'm just going to give some of the audience ones.
Yeah,
sure.
So Irene said, because of the spread of COVID and trying to destroy the Western world and lying to Japan, Jeannie said it'll all work out. Irene said earthquakes in the world and a change of prime minister. That's interesting. That's a big one. So I'm putting them on the screen so we can go back and check them later.
Yeah.
Them somehow.
They said stagnant.
The video of the show, so we'll be able to double check these feelings. Stuck.
Stuck. My feeling was dread. That's the feeling. I believe it is.
Dread.
So
okay.
Stagnant. Yeah. That was that one. Joshua says toward the end, I see more of the same. I physically felt frozen stagnant. So that stagnant words come up a few times.
Yeah.
Jeannie says that sounds like what's going on now.
Exactly.
A little more of this.
So there we go.
So let's move to something a little more specific. Let's look at the 2022 Olympics in Beijing. The 2022 Olympics in Beijing.
And do you know around when those are supposed to happen?
The exact date?
Yeah.
I think they're winter, right? So
here, I'll look it up real quick.
That would be in January or February. I think February. Let me just double check.
This looks like February 4th through the 20th.
Yeah,
so
that sounds right.
Olympics.
I had Russia popped immediately into my head.
It would seem like the maybe the I'm assuming this is maybe the opening of the Olympics, but I've seen someone like doing something with fire, like they were juggling with fire.
I saw an image of the Chinese flag with a tear, like tear down the middle.
Interesting.
And it was like slowly like being pulled apart. And I could see like the weave of the fibers coming through.
Yeah, I'm seeing something that's like, I would call it a facade. So there's like what's being shown to everybody, and then there's what's behind. It's like one of those fake Western movie walls, and there's what's being shown on the surface, and then there's everything behind it. And the organizers and people are like doing everything they can to like hold things together. I'm just trying to see if they're going to keep it together. Like that, there's so much energy is going into that, like with what is really there and what they're going to try to present to the world. And it like that's taking a huge amount of their own resources to try to present that, maintain that facade. What are you guys seeing?
Well, I had gotten to Russia, and I have the feeling with the Russia, and I kind of see like a guy in red skating, figure skating, like kind of just standing here doing the figure skating thing, and it's some kind of controversy surrounding it. So I think maybe, having thought about it a little bit now, I think maybe that means there'll be some sort of controversy in maybe the judgments on the figure skating, or maybe one of the events, and it'll involve Russia. Also, Yugoslavia popped into my head. I'm not even sure, again, if they're really even participating, but it popped into my head. So that's what I've got. Chris?
Right now, at the moment, all I have is a tan building with the big Olympic sign. And everything is closed. It's empty. Everything's empty.
Well,
I got that. I got a very empty, echoey, like things are echoing and empty. I got that too.
Oh,
we've got a lot of audience comments.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What is them?
Jeannie says, that sounds like, that we already covered that one. But then she went on to say, when y'all spoke of heat, there were 7 volcanoes going on right now. And then she said, including in Brazil, which may play into the South America Brazil comments I made earlier.
Oh.
Talisha says, mistake, all hell is going to break loose. We shouldn't do it. Irene says, not happening, and people are protesting against the Olympics in China and afraid of the virus being spread. Very good point. Joshua says, I'm seeing a red flag and yellow stars. I think you meant to say there.
it's China.
Does anyone have like an overall thought if they're going to happen or not happen?
Ian said not going to happen. Anne-Marie Young.
Okay.
Not going to happen. Joshua says, I'm feeling something bad. I feel shaking. Chaos. And Irene says, war in Southeast Asia will create the outcome of China and the Olympics. Okay. Yep, there's Anne-Marie. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
And let's see. Wow. I'm feeling a natural disaster. I see not going to happen.
Wow. Okay.
That's a very real possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know my brother will love me for saying this, but he just texted me and said his colonoscopy got canceled on Monday. So
Hey.
Are we close to that too?
I'm sure he's very happy about it. But,
He's gonna love you for reporting that.
Boy,
So
I guess we get to have popcorn.
we can take that off the list, that we don't have to look at his colon for Monday.
Yeah, that's
That's
off
right. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll scratch it off. So the next topic is a lot of people were tuning into weather. So let's do the topic of weather. And I figured I would break it down, like winter, spring, summer, and fall. So let's do weather and start with winter. And like, what kind of winter are we going to have? I know people are coming from all different places, but it would be cool to find out what the winter is going to be.
Maybe
Probing.
with this, what we want to ask is, what is going to stand out in the news, perhaps, that is unusual and unexpected?
Okay, that's good.
That's what Ingo did. He had a whole project called the Prophecy Project, where they would look at things like the weather or politics and stuff, and to get past the idea, well, what if people just tune into how things are now? Or, of course, winter is going to be cold, summer is going to be, depending where you are. So yeah, what is going to be a newsworthy event? And out of everything that could happen, what will happen that wouldn't even be expected?
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we're starting with winter. So that would, yeah.
I've got something like a typhoon or like a ship sinking, and the weather is actually kind of warm, and that's like the cause of the issue. That it's too warm.
that's what I got too. It's too
Really?
warm.
Too warm. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing about a ship.
No ship.
Idea of like a
Remember-
large tanker type ship sinking.
And this, just to be exact, this is when you say winter for 20, you really mean like over January, February of this coming year, like in the next 2 months, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
January, February, and then up until March 21st. So
Okay.
I was getting, because what you said, Deborah, like the headlines, and I was getting something about Nevada or Las Vegas or some unexpected temperatures and snow and things like that continuing, because I know there's stuff going on, but it would be unusual stuff going on the West Coast, and where I live in Chicago, like nothing's happening here. It's just like pretty like nothing. And then I don't know what I didn't get anything for East Coast, but the West Coast is unusually cold and snowy.
I was just getting something newsworthy. It did seem like Japan, but I just got something. I don't know what that was with Japan. I did then get something about sinkholes around February, like a really big sinkhole. But I'm not sure if that's going to be in Japan or because the next thing I got was alligators, which make me think of Florida.
Oh, jeez.
Where are you guys again? Chris is.
We're in New England.
Massachusetts. Rhode
Yeah,
Island.
Mass and Rhode Island.
What are you guys getting for winter?
I've gotten towards the West Coast more snow and freezing
Yeah.
ice, but also fires in the middle. I guess like Colorado and New Mexico over there.
Okay.
East Coast, I really didn't get much except for snow, warm. Got some snow, but it's unseasonably warm, I guess.
Yeah, I'm feeling like Asia is really warm, and like there's some issues over that way, because of it. I'm still with that with the tanker, and for some reason I had an image of like a tanker sinking.
So put the boats with you
I don't know.
and ships on the horizon.
See a boat in the water. Playing this. It's all that front loading we did.
What are the people who are here with us getting?
In the audience, let's see. I've got a lot of comments out here. I think people like this idea. Let's see.
It's fun. I
Anne-Marie,
love hearing what they're writing.
warm, that's usually cold, and cold where warm, where it's warm.
That's basically what I got to.
It does sound like what you were saying.
Yeah.
Irene says, very cold because we are freezing here and no central heat for us.
Oh, no.
I see more winter earthquakes for us.
Oh,
We had
interesting.
2 in a row here, so that's interesting. Yeah, they tend to be in groups, right? Let's
I
see.
was thinking something about shaking, which made me think of earthquakes. But I was thinking it might not be for a while yet.
Keisha says warmer than usual, intense winter storm in areas. Joshua says, I see the sun, lots of sun and record heat.
He
Oh.
also
He says, sees boats crashing into each other. Interesting.
We're both.
See them boats.
Mm.
Stay off the boats.
Oh no.
Keisha says, the weather is already in its way from being unusual from the normal at this time. It's just going to
Yeah.
continue to build.
Yeah.
Irene says,
Unusual.
tsunami warning.
Wow.
All right. And
that's where the
Talisha said mid states, and I think that's when you were talking probably about the central US. Joshua says, I'm seeing something about natural gas explosion out west. There, that's very newsworthy. I hope I'm not swallowed in Florida. Wow, we're back to our dirty talk. Irene says, I wish we had a warm weather. Okay, so it's been very cold in Japan. But there's been tropical storms around Philippines.
yeah, there's
Joshua
some
says, I was
major-
chased by an alligator on Bigfoot.
Big one.
Wow. I'd like to hear more about that. Where were you that you were chased by an alligator?
Remember when we were in New Orleans and they were feeding the alligators marshmallows?
Yeah, we went on a swamp trip on one of those airboats at sunset. It was so cool, and they were feeding marshmallows to the alligators.
Oh my goodness. Marshmallow.
Wow.
It is
I didn't know
weird.
they had them.
No.
And
It's like
the guy
trout.
driving our boat was completely drunk, and I thought he was feeding them with a stick, just an old stick, and I thought for sure he was going to fall in and leave us there, like in the middle of this like bayou, and with all the mosquitoes. Oh my gosh!
Oh, I can
That must
imagine
have been
mosquitoes. must
terrible for you.
Well, and that was an example of a synchronistic event with my sister, because we didn't even know my sister had gone to Costa Rica, and I posted our alligator photos that night, and my sister wrote and said, have you looked at my Facebook page? And she had posted crocodile photos. She had been visiting with crocodiles at the same exact time we were visiting with alligators in another part of the world, and we had no idea that each other was going to be doing that.
Wow.
Wow.
Definitely.
Joshua, for information, said, LOL, I ran my ass off. So that's
Because you were on land and not in the water at the time.
some more comments out here. Alicia says also felt earthquakes, as Anne-Marie had said, but around the eastern part of the U.S. Irene asked Joshua, did you make gator steak? I don't think gator steak happened. Gail says, last week in Egypt, it snowed in Alexandria. A friend in Egypt sent photos, he said, the first time in history.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's weird. See, that whoever said, I don't remember who it was, but she said that it's going to be unusual in places you don't expect. It's already happening.
Cold where it's warm,
Yes.
and warm where it's cold, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I
I do see a thing with the earthquakes coming though, and we're getting them every now and then. But I've been monitoring something that has been happening and Chris knows about it, but I don't want to like really talk about it right now. But yeah, I see earthquakes in our future on the East Coast here, most definitely.
Yeah, earthquakes may become a thing because that's come up a few times. Gail says twins. Irene says, Joshua Dixon, lucky you still have an arse. That's awesome.
It's like funny.
So this is
Spit fun.
newsworthy
Yeah.
winter.
Should we go on to, what should we go on to next?
Yeah, do you want to, yeah, we could do like spring and then summer and fall, or we could pick another topic.
Let's go to another topic, maybe.
Okay,
Sure.
what about what about the financial state or the economy, economics, something like that? We can focus and do what Deborah said before about, tune into the news and something that, could possibly be the headline in regards to the economy or financial state of the world.
Okay, well, I'll draw.
Oh, a curving line.
Well, from top to bottom, so a complete drop.
So you're looking at that linearly.
Yeah, and I got something that said big. So at first I was like, oh, well, big isn't very, what's big? And then I saw that line and it just like a melting feeling. So, and I hear the words economy. It's referring to the economy is just falling.
Falling.
I also had like an image of a guy on a ski slope, like go from the top and he just dropped down. But then there was a little curve up. So, it dropped way down, but then it did seem to start to lift up too before the end of the year, I think. A little bit. What about you?
I got red numbers on a blackboard, like the stock market, and it's going down in a slope like that. Everything's in the red.
I had select markets. I did see like a money, like a $20 bill or something, like the face, Jefferson's face on there, and I kind of almost heard select markets. So like maybe there are certain things that you could invest in, like possibly cryptocurrency at the right times, that might help get you through that if you're an investor. But overall, I tend to agree with you and I see it drop. So very select markets will do well. That was my impression.
Is this feeling of the drop, is that for the, like, are you looking at the whole year? Like, or, like the whole kind of timeline of the whole year? Or is that like by quarter? Or like, do you see like the end of the year being on the down swoop? Or does it, I think Deborah said it might be starting to go up. Do you know kind of like a time, can you make a timeline out of that?
Are you asking Chris?
No,
I'm
you. Everyone.
I'm trying to place that and without overlaying it.
September, when it was going to start to go back up just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, this got like, I'm not like my brain isn't thinking like we're going to have a huge drop, like my logic isn't thinking that we're going to have a huge drop really quick, but according to this, it does seem like starting in February, it's going to drop, like whatever measures measure the whole economy overall.
Do you
I
get
think
anything about like employment and unemployment? Something like, the that kind of, the, an employment rate, is that also going to go down? Is it going to go up? Like, what are you going to feel on that?
Well, I'm
take
hearing like different sectors. Like I was seeing two lines, and I've seen one line go up. I've seen like a midline and an upper line. Like one sector was going to go up. Let's hear from, how about the audience?
Yeah, a lot.
absolutely a lot of comments out here. Let's see here. Oh, heck, we haven't got earthquake insurance yet, says Irene Takura. Okay, wait. Oh, it's still on weather. Let me scroll down a little bit here. A lot of comments in chat, so I apologize. They're all kind of lumped together in the software. All right. Talisha says it's already collapsing. People are all in denial, hoping for the best. Jeannie says economy is crashing, but it's being done on purpose, aka Great Reset.
Hmm.
Anne Marie Young says banks will be hacked, millions affected.
Yikes.
Irene says crash in some stock markets, not in US, but elsewhere. Interesting. Joshua says, I see dark, heavy clouds. I'm seeing a little boy crying, and the image isn't nice.
Aw.
Keisha says crash, falling. Irene agreed, said saw the same thing. Talisha says cash not important anymore, credit and electronic service.
Yeah.
That makes cryptocurrency right there. Irene says gold is too expensive and platinum is cheaper now, but I see gold dropping to the lowest point.
Hmm.
Oh, fascinating. I just had late spring in all of that as far as the timeline, and it doesn't get better. It seems like I don't know. My impression was that the winter doesn't start off that bad, and maybe in like April, even like it seems to be going up, or March, April, and then there's like a crash after that, leading into the summer. And I don't know, maybe with some spiking, but kind of it just seemed bleak. I saw a lot of black in there, trying to picture a line, and I actually drew out seasons on this paper in front of me and kind of tapped it out like we do in class. I like that. Tap.
With the pen moving.
Yeah,
I love it.
I went to tapping. I don't know if tapping's any better than probing.
Tapping,
Sure.
probing, and throwing your pen. That's always
Throwing your pen.
Yes.
good. Throwing. Hopefully you don't have anger issues. It does, what?
One of the things I was getting was in April, I was seeing these bankers like arguing, like saying, do we call in, like they've given out lots of loans and lots of credit, and there's like the question, do we call in our loans, like call in the debt, or do we let it go longer and let more debt get accrued? And and then I saw like there being a divide of this arguing of how they're going to do that or not, because so much credit keeps getting extended more and more, like on every level. So at the point they call in and say, you guys have to pay this or else, that's like the critical juncture. Not sure exactly which way they'll go, but it kind of sounds like they'll start to call it in.
Well, a lot of these predictions that we've had, they seem kind of gloom and doom. Is there something that we can look at, because we're about to enter this new year, just like when I started the show and I said like 2021, I was really excited about it and just ready to go. It, even though these predictions that we make are kind of on maybe the negative side, is on the other side of making these predictions, is there something that we can manifest to, kind of change the outcome? Like maybe something we can do energetically to prevent some of these things from even happening and just kind of manifesting good things to come in our lives, even with these things happening around us.
Well, there's also the question of, like we're looking at global things that might be in the news, but this may have no effect on us personally, right?
Exactly. It may not have any bearing on us or our loved ones. It could be just things happening in the world. And it's easy if we use that term front loading before. We start saying things like, well, that looks bleak, and your mind can just easily feed that. And, be careful of the images. I keep trying to clear my mind, which is a bit of a challenge, right? When we're all describing kind of the same things, or same subjects.
What if we looked at either, like along what Michelle's saying, is if we asked, is there going to be something positive in the news, or do you want to look for solutions? But like, is there a solution?
I think, to end on an upbeat, I'd like to, bring in some positivity, like some good, exciting things, and, things that we do have control over, things that we can contribute to, and, make sure that, even if the whole, like everything's falling around on us, that we can, survive through it and actually be happy. That's what I'm thinking. How could we do that?
Well, we could just see what comes up around that.
Okay.
Or we could say, like, are there any cool things that are happening that collectively people will be excited about? Like, do we want to go? I guess my question is, do we want to look collectively or individually? Because those two things.
Well, as you said that, something did pop up for me, and it was something in space that they actually got closer to the theory of being able to travel closer to the speed of light and getting more information about planets that we could actually travel to that may have life, and that we might have an inkling that they found life on another planet in the Goldilocks zone.
Oh,
Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
Got to be a
Goldilocks zone. Is that like your bathroom every morning? Or?
No, it's these planets that are in the area that could have life on them. They're like just in the right, like Earth, like they're just far enough from their star to have liquid water on it. And we know that liquid water is one of the very important things to start life. And so far they found quite a few out there with the potential, but they don't have all the information yet. So they're still working on it. But it's very cool stuff. I'm a nerd.
I am too. I listen to NASA Live and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Did she tech in space? And as she wrote it, you said that.
Yeah.
That was going on at the same time.
Really?
Something.
Yeah, you said space. I was like,
and my
just written it.
Yeah, my picture, mental picture was the moon. I don't know if that was earlier, but
right. And Ingo.
That's so cool.
Maybe there's going to be some developments with the moon. There's a lot going on there with different countries visiting there.
It is. Yeah, China's on the dark side, and I think they're still working that rover over to the. I don't know if you guys saw the image that the rover had sent back, where it showed
the square cube
and the horizon.
Yeah.
But I guess it's going to take like several weeks for them to move the rover, even though it's not a great distance to the object. They can only move it during certain parts of the day because it gets too cold, and they have to be so careful of what's in front of it, even though they have those cameras and things. the terrain can still destroy the rover if they make a wrong turn. So it's a very slow movement to go with maybe like 100 yards,
Wow.
something like that.
That's really cool.
No.
Well, I got something else too that's positive, which I was not thinking of this, but just there's going to be a mass amount of people doing remote viewing. So I just got like so many people
And taking our classes.
That's awesome.
That sounds like marketing to me.
No, yeah, like I'm serious. Like I mean, on one level it makes sense, but I'm just saying, like, it just dropped into my head. Like I just see mass amounts of people doing remote viewing, like it's a household name. Like it's just going to become so normal for people to be doing it. Just like an activity like playing video games is normal for a lot of people, and so will remote viewing.
And
Remote
you know,
viewing
that
is
kind of
like
reminds me, does anybody have any, like, are they getting any messages about the Meta, the Facebook, the transformation into Meta? Does anyone have can perceive what might happen with the Meta?
What is the Meta?
It's in the
Sorry.
name of Facebook, and their platform is changing in some ways, I guess. With Meta is supposed to come some new technologies. I know that they did well with the Oculus sales this Christmas season, was up, and I guess was greater than expected. And that's owned by Facebook. That's the
Which
VR
would be, which to me is like, by the time that they're ready to unroll this whole thing, they're probably going to be like, you know how iPhones are like 8.0, 12 point whatever. Probably going to need your VR to be whatever is aligned with the technology that they have. So, but Facebook is not called Meta anymore. I mean, it's not called Facebook anymore. It's called Meta, and they're going to be changing it into a whole entire kind of like they're evolving it into the next technology of the world, which will be where you are, it's like a virtual reality around you. So like when you have a meeting with people, it's not going to be like a Zoom. It's going to be like you're there in the meeting. Kind of like that. Yeah, they have big plans.
They do, and that the VR is pretty interesting. We have the Oculus, and it's neat. I only see it improving. I think it's cool in a way that it's tied to social media. It's interesting, right? But I don't know. It's almost like it's a little invasive as well.
Yes, it is.
Oh, time to eat.
What is it?
Danny just brought me some food. It's chicken and rice. He just surprised me.
Looks good. Let's send a plate.
Is there enough for the class?
Smell it. Smells good. Everybody have a bite.
Sweet.
I know we've gone on later than planned, and we do want to let you be able to eat and enjoy the rest of your evenings. But
we didn't really hear from the audience yet on this last one about the positive.
Yeah, I thought maybe we would cruise through that, and then
we can
start to wrap things up.
Then we could go eat.
We can go eat. Jeannie says, lots of positives going on. We're all alive here now. We just celebrated another holiday, and people are wising up and learning the truth about those changes globally. Joshua says, paint, write, eat, and drink. Hold your loved ones near.
Aw.
Anne Marie says, love it. Some comments about the Goldilocks song. Let me see. Jeannie says, and last year taught many to appreciate those you love, as tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. To me, that's a great positive. And that was the thing I was getting. I didn't really get to say it. I said, wanted to say, in spite of all the calamity and the stuff we were describing, people stay together. And there's, I think, going to be a good feeling of that togetherness, maybe on like a sort of global level, which would be different, where we're all kind of separated, even within our own countries. Anne Marie says, working together, healing the world. Global transcendence.
Now, are these wishes and hopes, or are these intuitive impressions? Because I'm getting the feeling that we're
Hey,
Janine
what's the
will-
difference? What's the difference? What's
And
the
Marie's
difference?
healing the world. So,
So-
you know, our audience is playing along with this. So hopefully they've learned a bit and are able to go with the gut and not analyze those impressions too much, right? We just kind of want to get that, whatever impression you have out and get it out quickly. Just to review what you guys have there, you both have remote viewing classes available. And where's the best places to go to learn how to remote view? How do they reach you?
Yes. So you can reach me at debracatz.com and you can reach Michelle at butterflyeffectcenter.com. Or Michelle also is a very talented and popular publicist. So if anyone is watching this and is needing some help getting your own business promoted or product or book or anything like that,
Author of a book or yeah.
if you have your own radio show, or she also helps produce podcasts such as Gail's, who has such good jam and banana bread, who's been present tonight.
Hint, hint, hint.
Is Large and helping to produce that as well. So leave it to Michelle Media. You can check that out as well. And then you can also check out Chris and Kristen's offerings as well, because they have 2 podcasts that some of you might not be aware of. So make sure what is the other name? What's the name of your other podcast?
Yeah, our Saturday show is called Bigfoot and the Bunny. And for the life of me, I can't tell you what the real difference is. We initially planned to make Thirsty Thursday a little bit more relaxed and kick back,
And
you know, and maybe a little bit
Lightly.
more formal on Saturday, if that makes any sense. But it just, you know, it just happens.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well, thank
we
you
just
for
go
that.
with it.
Yeah.
But thank you. Your
Watching us.
newest book is Associative Remote Viewing, that you did with John Knowles. And also you're the author of You Are Psychic, Extraordinary Psychic, Freeing the Genie Within. I know these books are all available on Amazon. Is that the best place to get your books?
Yeah, and actually, I recently published all 3 of those first books into a trilogy called The Complete Clairvoyant, and it's actually selling for this almost the same price as the individual books. So it's called The Complete Clairvoyant, the trilogy, and it includes You're a Psychic, Extraordinary Psychic, and Freeing the Genie Within. And so it's your one-stop shop to all your psychic needs. And except for Associative Remote Viewing, if you're interested in learning how to predict future outcomes for events, then that book might be a good one to check out. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, I see lots of Happy New Year's out there. I hope our audience and you 2 guys have a wonderful New Year's Eve, the actual one, which is tomorrow for us.
Yeah.
And other parts of the world may be celebrating now. And hey, we might be celebrating now.
That's fine.
I might be celebrating right after the show.
I'm
But-
going to bed.
Right.
I celebrate myself.
I guess I'm gonna be by myself.
You get that probe out.
Yeah,
Happy.
get that probe out.
So
But, yeah,
Oh my
2020 does
Do the
not
best.
have to be
Oh,
the sad
Ah,
Trump.
I was
It can
thinking we should
actually
get
be
Willie
good.
Strieber on your show. Just
Yes.
kidding.
I think it's going to be
I'm over here like,
good
yeah.
overall. I really do. I have a good
Should.
feeling about it, and I think all of us are going to have an amazing year.
yeah,
so
we are. It's time for us to
thank
grow.
you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time, especially all this extra time.
Yeah.
I think I owe you like a bonus or something. I'm going to send out some kind of
yeah,
present.
this was really fun, and it was really fun hearing the comments from your listeners. And maybe we could do this again next year. Kind of started.
Absolutely. It's become a tradition. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you
Third
joining
year
us
in a row.
once again. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Let's do a toast. If we have any drink left.
A little.
Cheers.